everyone, and welcome to another video. Dyeing your American Girl doll's hair sounds like a fun project and a cool way to customize your doll. But does it actually work? And hopefully that's something we're going to find out today. So I did some research to find some different methods to try, and the methods that seem the most hopeful are using a permanent marker or Rit dye more. And the last method that I'm going to try is a total shot in the dark. The main factors that I'm going to use to base whether or not a method is a success or failure is color results, whether or not there is dye transfer, which is something that could potentially ruin your doll, so this is a very important one, the cost, how long the method takes, the wig condition once the method is done, and we are going to start with the permanent marker method. So some people recommend drawing it on the hair, and then some other people recommend mixing the ink with alcohol and applying it using a spray bottle. So we're going to try them both. So one thing that I'm interested in with this method is being able to use different colors. So I'm going to start with purple at the top part of the hair, and then I'm going to blend it into some other colors just to see what it looks like at the end. And I will say for this method that you should plan on taking a lot of time to do it because it is very time consuming, especially if you're trying to make it look fairly even, which I assume is going to be your goal. And I will say right now, the hair does feel very sticky, but after I get done coloring it, I'm going to wash it until the water runs clear before we do our dye transfer test. So what I'm going to do for the dye transfer test is wait for the wigs to completely dry after washing them until the water runs clear, and then I'm going to use a paper towel or a washcloth to wipe over the hair and see if we get any color. I will also give it a light mist and then wipe it again to see if we get any more color. Dye transfer can be very damaging to your doll because if you have hair that is losing color, and say you have like a white shirt on your doll, or if it's even setting up against the cloth body of your doll, that color can come off the hair and onto your doll, and then it can be a lot harder to remove. So I'm not gonna lie, I did get a little impatient, and I probably could have colored this better, but it takes a very long time and it's very hard to get even color across the board. Now it is completely dry after washing it, and I will say that the hair feels kind of crunchy and sticky at the same time. So it doesn't feel good. But let's take a look here, and yes, as you can see, I am still getting a ton of dye off of this wig. So it's not really something that I would feel comfortable putting on a doll. And here I'm going to mist it with water and rub the paper towel over it again and see what it looks like. And once again, we are getting quite a bit of color, and I would say we're getting more after misting it with water. I wiped the entire wig down with paper towel, and then I got a fresh one to just see how much transfer we're still getting. And here you can see I'm still getting some color on my fingers as well. So overall, I would have to say this is quite a messy project and not really worth the result. Because while the wig has a nice bright color, it is very uneven. It has dye transfer. The cost isn't bad. I mean, it was $3 for the whole pack of markers, but it's very time consuming, and at the end you have a sticky, crunchy wig that could ruin your doll. So on to the next method. So now we're going to try spraying on the permanent marker, and for this we're going to need a fine mist spray bottle and some alcohol. So we're going to add some alcohol in here, and then I'm going to remove the ink out of the permanent marker and put it into the alcohol. Now I am going to cut this some so that more ink can come out of there faster, and then after this we will pour it into our spray bottle and then spray it on the hair. Now looking at how light the color is, I'm wondering if maybe I should have got 2 permanent markers for this project, but we are going to try it just the same and see if it shows up on the hair. Okay, so I think it's looking pretty good so far. You can clearly see where I've sprayed it. So once I get done spraying it on, I'm going to let it sit for a little while before I wash it until the water runs clear, and then we'll do the dye transfer test. I have to say, after it dried, it does look pretty cool, but we're going to wash it and see if it continues to look that way. And the answer is no, it does not. I can barely see any color in the wig at all after washing it. There is a few places where you can kind of see it, but it's very faint. So next, let's do the dye transfer test and see if what little color there is comes off. Okay, so the paper towel still looks pretty clean. It seems like maybe there's a faint amount of color, but it would be very hard to see, so I can't say for sure whether there's any dye transferring to the paper towel or not. I mean, it kind of looks like it, but I'm not 100% sure. So I'm going to mist it with some water and try again and see if we get anything that way. And once again, if there is any color, I would say that it's faint at best. So in conclusion, I would say color results, barely noticeable. Dye transfer, I'm not really sure. And the cost is still great at $3, but considering the results of really nothing, I guess it's overpriced. The time it took was about 15 minutes, and there's no perceivable change in the wig condition. So overall, once again, I would just have to say it wasn't worth it. Next up is the RIT Dye More, and I followed the instructions on the company's website for how to dye things. The only thing that I differed on was the amount of dye used. For the purple and brown, I used half a bottle, and for the blue, I used a whole bottle, which you'll see what I'm talking about in a minute. The reason that I did this is because I didn't see anywhere where they specified how much dye you're supposed to use when you're only using the one color. So I set my pot up and put it on the burner, and I have it about 200 degrees Fahrenheit. I did set this up in front of a window, and you'll see in a second, I actually put a fan in the window. That really helped with the smell that is produced during this procedure. If you watch my other video about dyeing a doll, you know what I'm talking about. So I started out with a little less on the purple, and then I added whenever it didn't seem to be taking. And for the purple wigs and the brown wig, I left them in for 10 minutes, and for the blue wig, I left them in for 15 minutes. Now, for the purple, I'm going to try to dye a blonde wig, a brown wig, and a black wig. And I'm going to do the same for the blue. For the brown color, I just used a blonde wig because I was running low on wigs. Now, the reason that I'm using all of the different colored wigs is because a lot of people said that the only way you can really dye a wig is if it is a blonde wig. So I wanted to go ahead and incorporate these other wigs into the mix just to see if that is in fact correct. So once I take the wigs out of the mixture, I'm just setting them on the towel to the side until we can wash them in the sink and try to get some of that extra dye out. So here is all the wigs I dyed, 3 purple, 3 blue, and 1 brown, and we're just going to give them a good wash until the water runs clear on them, and then I will set them to the side and let them dry. Okay, so all of the wigs are dry now. I did go ahead and brush 3 of them out and steam them to make them look more presentable, but at the beginning they all looked like these matted messes. So they still don't look great, but they look better than they did. So overall, it is my opinion that the blonde purple wig turned out the best. Although it wasn't exactly the purple I was going for, it's considerably lighter than I was hoping it would be. And you can see that it didn't necessarily dye evenly. You can still see quite a bit of blonde, kind of brownish looking hair. So it came out all right, but I definitely would not say perfect. And it took me, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes to brush it out and get it looking halfway decent. So this is the brown wig that I did in the purple dye, and overall I can't really say that it held the color. There is some purple in here and you can see it. It's kind of like maybe it dyed the highlights of the hair. It's definitely not very noticeable, but you can see more color in the brown wig than you can in the black wigs, because in the black wig I can't see any color at all. And that is true for both the blue dye and the purple dye. This was the blonde wig that I attempted to dye blue, but I would say that it is more of a green color, and it did not dye evenly. As you can see, there is still a lot of, it looks more brown now, but it's like blonde highlights throughout, so I can't say that it looks good. And here's the brown wig that I attempted to dye blue, and it looks horrible. You can see that it retains some color, but not really. It's bad. And this last wig was a blonde wig that I attempted to dye brown, and it came out more like a mousy grayish color. So it's a pretty color, but it did not come out brown. You can see in the wig cap that it should have, but it didn't. So in this case, I used a white washcloth to test the dye transfer, but it wasn't until I started editing this video that I realized you couldn't see it that clearly. But there is a little bit. It's minimal, but there is definitely some dye transfer happening. Overall, I would classify the color results as faded and uneven, or just not the color that was expected. There was dye transfer. The cost of this project wasn't that bad. You're looking at $5 per dye bottle, so if you just wanted to do one color, then it would only be $5. And the time it took wasn't that bad either. It was about 15 minutes. But the wig condition whenever you're done is dry and frizzy. So after looking at all that, I would also say this method does not work. Now for our shot in the dark method. I only found this kind of described in one person's comment, and basically they said that it's alcohol and acrylic paint and you spray it on the wig. That was all of the directions that I saw, so we're winging it. I don't really know how to feel about this one. One thing that I'm concerned about is acrylic paint is water soluble, so I don't know that all of it's not just going to wash out whenever we wash the hair, but if it dries, it may not have color transfer anyways. So what I will probably do is wash half of the wig and leave the other half alone and see what we end up with. Put both alcohol and paint into the spray bottle. To begin with, it was a little hard to spray, so I added a little bit more alcohol, and I just try to give the wig a good coat. So now we just have to wait for it to dry. So while that's drying, I would like to send a big thanks to Alley Cat Loves AG for suggesting this video. I know it was like 3 months ago. I'm sorry about that, but I do hope that it covers some of the methods that you wanted to see. And thank you so much for watching my channel. And I know there are some methods out there that I am not representing in this video, such as using human hair dye or watercolors to give your doll's hair a temporary dye job, but I didn't really want to go into that in this video because if it's temporary, by definition, it's going to come off. So you're definitely going to have dye transfer, I would think, in those situations. I waited until the wig was completely dry to the touch before washing half of it, and then after washing it, I set it to the side and let it dry again. So this is what we look like, and I'm getting quite a bit of paint in my hands just from touching the wig. So that does not bode well for the transfer test, but we're going to go ahead and test the side that I didn't wash first. Oh, wow. Okay, that is bad. All right, this is the side I washed, and it is equally bad. So that's obviously a failure. So once again, our color results uneven, dye transfer definitely. Cost wasn't bad, $2, but not great considering the results. Time was about 15 minutes and the wig feels crunchy. So I can't recommend this method either. And that is all I have for you today. So my diagnosis is unfortunately going to have to be just buying a new wig. That's a wrap. If you liked that video and would like to see more like it, please be sure to subscribe to my channel, and I hope you have an adorable day.